Okay, welcome Edwina.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, this is our second episode, and we thought for this one it would be good just to sort of to get to know each other a bit. So this is Get to Know Your Hosts. So maybe you can just tell people where we are right now.
Well, we've actually just met each other face to face for the first time. Super exciting. And you've come up to Pitlochry, where we're staying for a couple of weeks, where my husband's family are from, and we have a little flat up here. And we've been coming up here now for almost 20 years on holiday, so we know the area really well. So we took it as a good opportunity to meet each other face to face, and it's a super way to get to know each other rather than over Zoom or Skype.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be a good chance as well that we could ask each other some questions, perhaps things people have never heard about us. We've both been quite active on social media and blogs for years, and perhaps the same questions get asked quite a lot, so we thought it would be a good chance to ask some different questions, so to let our listeners get to know perhaps some different stories about us, but also to get to know each other a bit better. Shall I start and ask you the first question?
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
So tell me about how you got into running. Let's go back, how many years, John? 100 years?
Not quite, yeah.
When you first found running in your life, how did it sort of...
Yeah, I think for me it was in school really. I was one of those annoying kids that loved to run.
Yeah.
So I remember in primary school, whenever you got a chance to run, I was there. But particularly in secondary school, I'm from Liverpool, went to a school called Holt Comprehensive. And every year we had a cross-country race, which was probably about 250 in the year, so 125 boys probably. And most of the boys tried to avoid it, whereas I couldn't wait. And every year it was the highlight of my year.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to fifth year, so I'd be about 15 by then. I won it one year. I was normally about fifth or sixth. Yeah. And one year I won the event, and it was mainly because no one else wanted to take it seriously.
I won't hear that.
But I absolutely loved it. So that was probably my first experience of running. And then the other thing was I joined the Boys Brigade company when I was 13, and again there was a lot of running involved. And because it was Boys Brigade, the standard wasn't quite so good. So I used to win most things. I used to win the cross countries, the 1500 meters, and I was always at the top, which always helps, doesn't it, when you're winning?
Oh yeah, especially when you're younger. And did you do any training for these events? Can you remember, or was it literally?
Well, early on I didn't, but I had a really good friend in Liverpool who started training, and he beat me each year for a couple of times, and I found out that he was going out most nights and training.
I love it.
And I thought, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
One of my friends in the Boys Brigade, a friend called Ross, he was a keen runner, and he started taking me out. So I would say from about 14 onwards, I think not a structured training plan, but definitely starting to run regularly.
Did you do other sports as well as running?
I did. Obviously, coming from Liverpool, football is a big thing. I support Everton.
That was my next question.
My ambition was to play football for Everton. So yeah, I played loads of sports. I love playing racket sports, so tennis, badminton, squash.
So did that lead you then into training to be a PE teacher?
It did, yeah. I think when I was at school, I started obviously thinking about what to do next, and my heroes were PE teachers.
Yeah,
and that's what I wanted to be. So I worked I did as well as I could to get the qualifications I needed.
Where did you train?
Chester.
Okay.
Yeah, which was lovely because it was about 20 miles from Liverpool.
Yeah.
So it was far enough to go away.
Yeah, you felt you were going on an adventure.
Yeah,
if you get home.
But near enough to get back if I needed my washing doing.
I was just going to say, if you want to do your laundry.
Yeah. So, and I loved Chester. It was a wing college of PE at that stage.
Yeah.
That was the early, late 70s.
Yeah.
And so there was only 300 guys in the college, and 200 of them did PE.
Yeah.
So we had 4 football teams, 3 rugby teams.
Shenanigans going on there.
Yeah. So it was a real hotbed of sport.
Yeah.
So you couldn't help but get caught up with all that.
Yeah. We had quite similar because I followed the same sort of path. I loved running at school, and but I played all the sports. I loved anything sports. So it was like I reckon from when I was a young teenager, when people would ask what I wanted to do, it was be a PE teacher, because like you, my heroes were my PE teachers. They seemed to have the best life.
Yeah.
They just played sport.
They
were so super cool. They played sport all day, and that was like all I wanted to do was just play sport all day, and that seemed like a good career path to follow.
I was just going to ask, for you know that age of 13, 14, Whereas I in my work now, I see a lot of girls really keen up to 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And then they enter that sort of 13, 14
Yeah.
period, and they seem to lose that love of sport, and they're more concerned about how they look and everything.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Well, as you can tell, that the makeup and everything. I think I was very lucky in where I was. I was at a country school.
Right.
You know, I went to a girls' school as well. So the sort of like the added pressures and perhaps the not having boys there, that sort of change was perhaps, there were girls that then, all they wanted to do was go downtown and hang out with the boys. But I think as well, that's when the PE teacher and the people that are influencing you in your lives is so important. Yeah. And perhaps, I did a lot of running when I went to school, and then in that sort of teenage years, the running was, I still had to do cross country and I still did athletics, but I loved playing. The sort of game sports were more important. And actually, when I went to uni, I went as a runner, and I did play hockey still and netball, but actually the running took a back seat. And I think that's when I sort of had my teenage years, because I went to uni and I was like, there's another world. There's boys. There's beer.
So which college was that?
I went to Durham.
Yeah.
And I think they took me on thinking, this is great, we're getting an athlete.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, I just want to play hockey and have fun. And so I think I sort of had my sort of teenage years then, because I'd been so focused on running and sport at school. And then I went to uni, I was like, you can have a lot of fun with sport as well. So I was quite lucky in that I didn't go through that. I carried on with me throughout, but running took a big backseat at uni. I carried on running for fun. But I played hockey as sort of my main sport, and I had a lot of fun as well. Yeah. But I think that's important. And I don't think we should panic when girls do drop out of sport when they're teenagers. I think keeping educating them of the importance of sport in their lives and finding something that they want to do. And that was always a big thing I did as a PE teacher, was finding ways, those girls from when they were lovely when they came, because I taught secondary, and they'd come to school as super keen 11, 12-year-olds, and then they'd come back after the summer holidays, 14, 15-year-olds, and suddenly they didn't like their PE teachers anymore, and it was horrible. And so finding ways to keep them enthused, which is what you do as well, isn't it? Different sports, so that even then they might be like, I don't want to do it, we hate it, but they'll have had a go at it. So maybe when they do go to uni, they'll be like, I do want to do some sport in my life. And I remember at school I did something random, volleyball, badminton, Zumba, something that they'll then pick up again. Yeah. So I think it's about working with them. But I was lucky in that I was so super keen at sport that it didn't, that sort of dropout, didn't really happen to me. Yeah. So then after, when you were a PE teacher, then where did you go next?
Yeah, I got a job teaching for a year, which didn't quite work out in some ways. That's another story. But then I joined an organisation called UCCF, Universities and Colleges Christian Fellowship. And I was based in Leicester, and I was looking after polytechnics in those days and colleges. And we worked with the Christian unions. So I'm a keen Christian, and I was very much involved in church and wanting to share my faith and encourage the students. But it was the sort of job that you were working weekends and evenings. So team sports, I couldn't do so much. Yeah. So I couldn't join a football team because I was away at weekends and working and things. So I decided to do some more running. And I started running more. And I just found I just really, really enjoyed it. And you can run anywhere, can't you? So if I was away I was based in Leicester, but if I was in Nottingham or I was in Birmingham, then I could find somewhere to run. So I started doing more and more. And during that time, that 3 years, I think the half marathon was my favourite distance. Yeah. Really, 10Ks weren't that big then. That was sort of mid-80s. And to be honest, to go somewhere and run 6 miles, it wasn't worth it. Yeah, that's right. Whereas half marathon, I just loved it. I loved that distance because you could push yourself the whole way. And I did a number of half marathons, ran about 120, and then I broke 120. Wow. And then my best ever was 116 in 1985. Yeah. And 84. And I just had a good day. And and I just really enjoyed that challenge of being able to push. I did one marathon at that time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. Did that transpire into your marathon time then?
It was 3 hours 14.
Okay.
But I was really disappointed. Yeah. Because I felt I had the potential of running under 3 hours.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a hot day. These are my excuses. It was a
here we go.
2 lap course. Most people did the half marathon.
Yeah, that's hard.
I remember
then,
running the first 3 miles in under 18 minutes. And because there was no mile markers, and I remember thinking, I've blown this, and I had. By the time I got to 20 miles, I was absolutely. I remember it was so hot. I got to this water station, and I just poured water over me, and it just went.
Yeah.
And the last 6 miles was just murder.
Have you run marathons since then?
I've only done one since.
No way.
Yeah, and I did about a similar time actually as a 50-odd.
But it shows the difference as well between a half marathon pacing and a marathon pacing.
Yeah.
They're very different.
They are.
And sometimes that first marathon doesn't go, you don't realise the difference in the pacing and the difference in the feel until you do it. And perhaps if you'd gone and done another one a couple of months down the line.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
But you were young.
I know.
You were, and I think a lot of people find running in that time of their lives. They've been at school. Some have been sporty. Some haven't been sporty. But they suddenly find they want to do some exercise, and they're travelling, and they can't do the team sports that they used to do, or they've got a family. Yeah. But they find that putting on a pair of trainers and getting out the door is the best way to fit sport into their life and get that buzz. And it's also the cheapest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about for you, Edwina? When did sort of competitive running, more longer distance, become key in your life?
So I did 400 and 800 meters at school. Okay. Really, I was pretty quick.
Yeah.
I haven't got that speed now. I think I did.
What's your bet?
I know that my old coach, he still follows me, so he'll have all the slits written somewhere. But I think I did about 57, 58 seconds for 400 and about 2:08. 2:10 for 800 meters as a schoolgirl. Yeah. I was pretty rapid. Yeah. And I did cross country, and I think my top at the nationals was about 32nd. So yeah, I was pretty speedy, but I never really enjoyed it. Okay. I always found the pain. I dreaded the pain so much, but I always loved the training. And I always loved being outside and running across the fields and stuff, just easy. I always loved that sort of lunchtime easy runs going out. That's the bit I always really loved. And so as I said, it took my running to uni, but I sort of fell out of it. I think because I'd trained so hard at school and it had been so focused that actually I let it go. Yeah. But it was always there in the background. I always ran. The director of sport at uni used to think I was mad because we'd have a huge hockey game in the afternoon, and in the morning he'd see me out jogging around the sports field and he'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I always feel better if I've been for a run." And so I always carried on that easy running. And then I remember doing the Great North Run when I was at school and thinking, half of that is such at uni. Actually, I did the London Marathon when I was at school with Mum. She wanted to do it, and Dad worked for Age Concern at the time, so he got us some charity places and we raised money. And so I trained Mum up. She was my first client when I was 18, and I remember thinking, we went round it was brilliant, but I remember thinking, no, why would anyone want to do that? Never again. Then I played hockey for many years, and then once I became a PE teacher, a bit like you, I was like, I carried on playing hockey, but I was teaching, and we had Saturday matches and stuff, and I couldn't really carry on playing my sport as much as I wanted to. And I sort of as well was like, I've done it now. I've played this sport. I've got sort of the level I'm going to do. And I thought, I think I can, but I still got, in the early 20s, still got loads of energy. I want to do something different. And actually it wasn't running. I then went into it as triathlon. My running coach at school had always said to me, "You'd be a good triathlete." I did a bit of swimming, but not a lot, but I was always strong. And he was like, and I had that power in my fitness. So I went to London on my first teaching job and joined a tri club, just threw myself in it and just died at every session because I thought, how hard can it be? So took up swimming so hard, took up cycling so hard, but very quickly all that training as a being sporty as a youngster sort of came through. So within a couple of months of consistent swimming and cycling, it all started to click together. And so actually I didn't do a lot of running. I did a lot more cycling and swimming for sort of the next 5 years really, but I had that huge endurance base that then led on to ultra running. So like you, I sort of found a sport that fitted into my everyday life. It wasn't actually running, but it was all sort of slowly leaning me towards the sort of ultra running. So you did that year. How long did you work for the...
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
And then at the end of that, I'd met Katrina. We got married.
Yeah.
And then we went to All Nations for a year, a Bible college down there in Hertfordshire, a place called Ware.
You went down south. How was that?
Yeah, it was very different. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it just for a year.
Yeah.
And then we went to Bangladesh for 3 years, and then India for 5 years.
Yeah.
So we had 8 years, and during that time we had 4 girls.
Yes.
So it was quite a busy time. And I think probably my running took a little bit of a back step then.
Yeah.
Just living in Bangladesh particularly.
Could you go out running?
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
There was one military airfield I could go on my motorbike to and then run around this field. But it was
that because of security or?
Yeah, and it was more just there's nowhere to run, to be honest. You know, the roads are really, really crammed with people and bikes and cows and all sorts. So it was just...
And they're not a running nation as such.
No, and also the type of work I was doing, it didn't quite fit in, the idea of running out with in shorts and stuff. Yeah. So that Bangladesh, I've got photographs of myself at the end of that 3 years, and I put a bit of weight on.
Did you?
Yeah. Really chubby, and I just wasn't exercising as much. I had an exercise bike that I used to work on. There was pools of sweat underneath it.
Nice.
So that was probably my unfittest running time of 3 years. And then we went to India to teach in a school called Hebron, a place called Uti Kamund in the hills down south. And it was at 7,000 feet, so it was incredible altitude training.
How did you find that altitude?
It took a few weeks to acclimatise. But once we lived there for 5 years, so you do get used to it, and you get used to the less oxygen.
Yeah.
But what was fun, there was a friend there called Dave who was a teacher, and we used to run at least two lunchtimes a week together. And we'd go out for a good sort of 40-minute run. And from the school, there was a big hill that we used to climb up and then come down. So it was a good workout. Yeah. And we were both a similar pace. Yeah. You know, we pushed each other hard. Yeah. And the fun thing was we used to get these international guests, IGs, coming out. Yeah, for sort of 6 months. And we were in our mid-30s at that point. And these guys had come out, 17, 18, 20-year-olds who thought they were fit, and they were. And we'd take them for a run the first week. And it was so much fun because we would get to this hill and we would be chatting away up this hill, and this 18-year-old who thought he was fit wasn't used to the altitude.
I forget that because we live at altitude too, and we get people runners come out to stay with us, and you forget about it, and you start going uphill, and you just and you hear the and you're like, oh my god, I thought you're really fit, but it does.
I think it just shows the value of altitude training because during that 5 years we came home for 2 months at Christmas halfway through, and I found a local race to do. And I just felt as though I was flying. Yeah. Suddenly being able to run at sea level with the training at altitude. Yeah.
Such a joy.
So I'm sure I had a good time that
I ran up a hill behind us yesterday, and I've got it all my years of being here on Strava. Oh, right. And I ran up it yesterday 2 minutes quicker than I've ever. And it's 17 minutes. I was like, still got it. But it's definitely. It's obviously going to not anything to do with my fitness because that's like 15 years worth of data, but it's definitely the altitude because when you come back, and I went for an easy jog last night, and you're like, this is so easy, just oxygen. To me, it's the terrain as well. Being able to run on a road is a joy compared to everything. I know, that's funny, isn't it? But it's so nice just running. You don't have to look where your feet are. There's no big hills. If you want a recovery run, you can just trot along. So
Excellent. Yeah. So then for you, at what stage did your kids come along, and how did that affect your training and then running?
So that was a big change in my life. Obviously, I did triathlon really competitively for 5 years. So as I was saying before, I got into it as sort of a new sport, and very quickly being that super competitive.
Yeah. And this is the Ironman distance?
Yeah, well, I started off at the shorter distance, the Olympic distance and sprint distances, but I soon realised my swimming was so hopeless that if I wanted to be competitive, which I did, that is what fuels me in all my sports is is the competitive drive against myself, really, not really so much against other people, but I want to be the best I can be. And I remember the first year, I still qualified for the age group world champs in my first year, and we went to Hawaii, not bad. And I came out the swim, and there was one other bike, probably someone that hadn't finished the swim and had pulled out, left in the bike rack, and so then I always had to pedal and bike so hard to catch up. So then by the time we got to the 5k or the 10k run, I was pretty done. But I was still always able to sort of pull through the fields because
proportion wise, the swimming is the shortest one, isn't it?
It is the shortest one, but you can lose. So say the top girls were doing it in like 20 minutes, and I'd be near on like 28, 29 minutes, and it's 10 minutes.
Giving away 8 minutes.
If you're not cycling with fast people, you know, even though in those shorter races you're allowed to, you're not allowed to draft, you still get the pacing. So I quickly realised that the endurance was the thing I needed to go into. So then I went into half Ironmans and Ironmans, and I did quite well at those I did a couple of seasons of those, and then... Again,
just to give people an idea, what's your time for an Ironman?
So my best was, I did 10 hours 03, I think it was, in Ironman Frankfurt in Germany. So
and was the 03 annoying, or?
Not really. I think my PB before that was like 10:50, so I was pretty pleased. It had been a good day. It was really, really hot. So the marathon was just a suffer. So I was pleased to have had a solid day, and I qualified for Hawaii in the World Champs in that one. So that was all, that was super. So I did, I did that. That was sort of my 5th season, and I got married at the end of that season. And it was sort of like, do I go and spend a year being a pro and seeing, leading that life? But anyone that's done triathlon knows it's a life, it's a full on, to be at the top level, you're out training all day, every day. It's 4 or 5 hours, whatever you're doing, it just takes time. That biking takes hours and hours. So,
and it's having the 3 disciplines, isn't it? Because most people, I would imagine, listening, watching this, are more runners. And we know what it takes to be a decent level of running. But then you've got to do the same
times that by 3.
And if you've got a weakness, say swimming's your weakness, you've got to do
5
more,
times a week in a pool. And then it's just all the travelling, and it's the kit as well, and keeping on top of everything. It's definitely, and all your mates are...
Let's stick with running.
Stick with the trainers and to do that. So obviously that's what I thought. I got married, and very quickly our first child came along, and I kept all my triathlon stuff thinking, I'm going to get back out there. I'm going to, it's child, I'll carry it on my back and carry on. And of course, you have your first baby, you're like, nope, life is over. And I remember going out for a bike ride after I'd had Finley, and this van came up really close, and on its horn, and it shook me. It really shook me, and I thought, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I haven't got the time to get back even to the level that I was before then, even trying to progress. And I didn't want to, and I think as parents, you can do anything that you want to do, but you've got to really want to do it to fit into your life. And I didn't really. I thought, I'm done, actually. So that's when, that's the sort of end of my cycle. And then I put my trainers back on and went back to being the runner I'd been when I was sort of 15, 16, and just going back to loving just running around the fields. And then I started Googling, so what is this ultra running all about? And that was the start of it for me. So when you came back from India, then did you... running then, how did you get into the ultra scene?
We moved to Leicester, back to Leicester, and I was working for the Missionary Society we went to Bangladesh with, called SIM. So I was a rep. So basically I would travel around the Midlands talking about mission to churches and organising short-term teams. So I took a team to Peru for a month. I took a team to Ethiopia for a month.
More altitude, this has a theme to it.
I know, that's right, and it was amazing just going for a shorter term with a group of young people and trying to inspire them about mission and the world being a bigger place. So that was great.
And did you run when you were away?
Yeah, I did. I was back into running, but it was more. I set myself probably a goal of 1,000 miles a year. And I thought that was reasonable. 20 miles a week, and I sort of kept a good shape, and I did started doing some more half marathons again. And more 10Ks because they were bigger then. So I was ticking over, I would say. And we had a young family, so it was time. And then we moved to Scotland in 2001, and I became a pastor of a church in Paisley. Again, I joined the local running club, Kilbarchan, and just really, again, trying to aim for about 1,000 miles a year and just ticking over. And then I got an injury in 2005, 2006. It was a calf injury. And it was so frustrating. I'd run for a few weeks, then it would break down. I'd rest it for a bit, I'd run again, it broke down.
Yeah.
And I was 47, 48, and I honestly thought my running days were over. I thought, if I can just run on the grass twice a week, maybe that's all I can expect now.
I'm going to get my hip.
Yeah. And so I went to the local hospital, the REH, and there was a physio there, again, called Katrina, not my wife, the same name. And she was determined to get me running again.
Yeah.
And I went week after week, and she manipulated my calf and got rid of the scar tissue. But she looked at my feet on a running machine, on a treadmill, and she said, I want to get you checked out. And I've got quite a nasty bunion on my right foot, which meant that I don't roll off my toe very well, and it puts all the pressure on my second toe, and that caused a problem in my calf.
Yeah.
So she got a pair of insoles made for me, and I've not looked back since. So basically, I started running again, and the weeks went by and no injury.
Building it
and
up.
So I thought, maybe I can run again.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I like having goals.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought about a road marathon, but I just didn't interest me. I've never, that one I did put me off, I suppose. And I read a magazine called My Race magazine, the Scottish magazine, and there was an article all about the West Highland Way in it. And I read this article and I thought, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with a guy called Dario, who's the race director, and I said, I'd love to do this race. And that was 2006, the end of 2006. So the race was 2007 in the June. And at those days, you could just turn up almost and enter. And I got a place and I started training for it. And I honestly thought it would just be a one-off. I'd do one ultra and then I'd do something else. But here I am, 13 years later, still loving it.
And so the training that you did into that you do look back on it now and think, the slight naivety, or you...
Well, honestly, Edwina, I remember sitting down with a piece of paper and saying, right, I've got 6 months to train for this. What am I going to do? So I decided I would do one long run a month.
Yeah.
So I'd go from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, and I would build it up. And I would try and cover the whole route in my training. So I went, because I don't, we only lived half an hour away from the start of the West Highland Way. So that was my plan. Yeah. And it was to run a long run once a month and build up the distance.
Very sensible.
Yeah.
I like this
and to try and
cover.
Copy,
I can sort of...
and to try and cover the whole distance.
Yeah.
But the thing that worked against me though was that my base was so low. Yeah. Because I'd not been running much because of this injury, and I was really struggling to be able to sort of to run decent distances. Yeah. So looking back, I wasn't far enough up, as it were. Yeah. But I got through it. Yeah. And
I do think from the sport though, in your younger life, and sort of seeing it through, that base is there. Yeah. Even though you often think I could have done more running in the second half of my program if I'd had that base to start.
I would say there's two things that were really key for me. One was I just wasn't hill fit. Yeah. All my running, most of my running had been on the road. Yeah. And just little inclines. Yeah. I think getting used to running up Conic Hill and Devil's Staircase and stuff, my legs just weren't used to it. And so it took a while to get that strength. Yes. Yeah. The other big mistake I made was I did the Highland Fling, which is my first ever ultra. That was 8 weeks before the West Highland Way. And it went really well. I did it in 10 hours 45. Wow. I was so chuffed. I was so emotional at the end, feeling as though I'd become an ultra runner, and it was great. But the big mistake I made, the following Monday, so that was on the Saturday, on the Monday, I was back at the club doing a fartlek session.
I mean, that's classic, isn't it?
And I was so keen to tell my friends, and I was so full of this, and I thought, I'm just going to jog along at the back. And I didn't. I got stuck in.
Oh my goodness! I'm amazed you could.
I know. Maybe it was a 10 by 3 minutes, and I pushed it. And then the Thursday, I started feeling this pain in my shin, and I literally had to. I struggled quite a while. I got through the West Highland Way. Yeah. But it wasn't. I
think that is that is an absolute. Everybody does that, and you do your first ultra. Oh. It doesn't have to be your first. People still do it, and they don't reflect then now I'm like, whatever, however,
Yeah.
you do that you do an ultra, the next week is
I'm a lot more sensible now.
a lot more old age. Well, now we're old, John. We can't. It takes me like 2 weeks to get my kit washed and get that ready.
The thing I learned from that though is I realised that I needed to have rest weeks.
Exactly.
And I needed to have easy runs.
It needs to be it needs to be just like the hills that you learnt to run up and down your program, and also afterwards you've got to let the body have a crash. And I think people are scared of the crash. The post ultra, not only the blues that you get when you've done it, and of course then you're buzzing and you're super fit as well, but you've got to let it all come down and fall to pieces again a little bit, don't you? And it's horrible, and everybody hates it, and as runners we're addicted to running, and all we want to do is go back and get that high again. But once we do it and we realise then we just get injured, hopefully next time we learn. But it's an ongoing process, isn't it?
Now, I think people who followed my progress over the last year on my blog and the things I've done, but the story from here onwards, probably people know.
Yeah.
And I think in these episodes, we are going to do some top tips, and we are going to talk about things, so things will come out. So I think that probably brings me up to date in the sense of where we're at. But I'd love to know a little bit about your sort of living in France, because you live in France.
Yeah.
You've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
So just tell us a bit about your story of getting to France.
Yeah.
What's it like?
Well, it's a funny story. My husband, he was born and brought up in Belgium, and he always wanted the kids to be bilingual.
Right.
But I mean, he's an English is his mother tongue, and so though he speaks French totally fluently and without an accent, so you would think he was French. He never started speaking French to the kids when they were little, so they didn't learn to speak French from when they were born, apart from our littlest. So he always badgered me about wanting to go and live in France, and I was always slightly reticent because my French was GCSE level. I could go to a supermarket, I could ask where the station was, and that was about it. And then our oldest started a term at school, and we just had our youngest. I've got 2 boys and a girl, and he started school, and I did suddenly think, this isn't where I want to live. This isn't how I want my kids to be outdoors, to be away from screens. And I remember the teacher saying, you need to put him in front of YouTube to do this maths thing. I thought, he's 5. Why would I do that? So actually initially we looked at moving up to Scotland, and then we looked at a few houses up there, and then the French thing was always there, and the mountains. My husband's a keen skier, and so I said to him, right, if you want to do that, you go and look for a house, and I'll support you. I'll do it, but you're all right.
Sorry, we just a little break there. Katina's just come back from her shopping.
So he had a job that was really flexible, and so he just needed to live near an airport, and so we made a ring. We bought a map of. We knew we wanted to live in the mountains, so we bought a map with the Alps in it and made a ring with 90 minutes around Geneva. And then we started looking for a house that wasn't a ski chalet. And this was the next problem, is because lots of the houses in the Alps, big enough for a family, are ski chalets. So they're small bedrooms.
And they're only used for half the year.
And so they don't have gardens. There's no flat space. They're on dodgy roads for driving. And but actually, so he was brilliant, and he went out about 4 times looking around lots of different houses, and we put our house on the market and it sold within 2 days. So it seemed like a sign that we were meant to go, and we found Morzine. Not just randomly, we found the house, and it happened to be just outside.
Now you say we found, but you didn't find it.
No, to be honest, I did nothing. I was at home nurturing the children, John. Give him the credit. He found this house just outside Morzine.
And you'd never seen it?
I'd never seen it.
So how many women would be prepared to leave England to go to France and live in a house that they'd never even seen?
I know. He did make a video. I thought that was fine.
That was fine.
But he'd done his research, and he went out to see it a couple of times, and he'd even run around there to check that the running routes were good. And so I trusted him, and so we packed up everything, we sold our house, and we actually had to stay in France. When you buy the mortgages, the money has to sit somewhere for 2 weeks, and so we went and stayed in Morzine for a little bit, and it wasn't until we moved there and we realised this is the most amazing place,
Right.
because it's
So
great.
he did well. Didn't
He did so well. He was lucky there. It's great for skiing. It's great for kids skiing.
Yeah.
The slopes are not too steep. The climate is cold, but it's not really cold.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, it stays as like, it's not just a ski town. It's open
Right.
all year round. I mean, there is interseason when it's dead,
Yeah.
but that's quite nice when it's been full of tourists. And in the summer, there's swimming, there's mountain biking, and it's open for tourists. There's a huge 50-meter outdoor pool, indoor pool.
Wow.
The kids live the dream.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we moved out there this is our 6th year now, and there's obviously moments when you're like, oh, I miss my family, or this is the French, the paperwork, and everything being in a different language.
Yeah.
And though I can chat now in French and sort of, converse with people, it's not quite the same as when you come back and can go into Marks and Spencer's and all your home comforts. But yeah, the kids they're all bilingual, and they're very happy in a local French school, and they ski like demons. Even my 5-year-old is faster than me. And they're super, super active and super fit. And we come back to England, and it's a different, kids are different. And so they're very lucky. I mean, it is sheltered. It's a sheltered life for them. And in some ways we slightly worry that they're a bit naive, but we'll cope with that. They're still young enough that, yeah.
So it's not a decision you've ever regretted?
No, never. In lockdown it was hard, because obviously you're a long way and we weren't sure when we were going to get back. But for running wise, I mean, I went out not really liking running up hills, and that was hard. But now, 5 years down the line, 2,000 meters in a long run, you're like, that's pretty standard climbing. And it's changed the way that I run. I don't think I'm as fast as I was, but I'm older on the flat, but I'm so much stronger. And I think the diversity of the training and skiing in the winter has made me a better overall athlete.
So you ski in the winter and run in the summer, basically?
Yeah, so I still run in the winter. We're really lucky that we've got pisted paths that right opposite us, we're right by a river, and then the other side, they piste 20k worth of track, and you can ski on it, but most people walk on it. So once that's hard pack, I've got 20k worth of running. So if the snow's good, I can still run on that, and I've got a treadmill. I don't do nearly as much. I probably, on a normal training week, in the summer I'll be like 15 hours probably worth of running, and then in the winter it's about 8, and then the rest I'll either cross-country ski or do ski touring, which is when you put skins on the bottom of your skis and you go uphill. So that's awesome. That's awesome for
So
fitness.
that's more the sort of...
you're like sliding your skis at the same time. When it gets steep and icy, and you go, oh my god, I'm going to die. So I do a lot of that.
I remember when I was at college, they're some of the fittest. They have some of the highest VO2 maxes, don't they? Because it's a whole body exercise.
It's a whole body. It's like dragging. It's like I have quite heavy kit, because I'm not. I like to feel safe when I'm coming down. You take the skins off the bottom of the skis and then you ski down. Often you're off piste, and so it's quite hard.
So the skins like give a bit of friction.
Yeah, they rub the basically one way.
Otherwise, you just slide down.
Yeah, and I mean, if you hit ice on them, you have to get your position on the snow right. Otherwise, you will. I've had a few slip back, so it's technical as well. And you're dragging that ski, so the boot is heavy on your leg. When you go back to running, it's so easy then, because you've been running in this. So I do more and more as my skiing's got better. I definitely did the most last winter that I ever did, and now next winter again I'll add more and more into my running, because then when you come back to the running, you'll still really it takes a while to then get back into the running, but that uphill work. And I think as I get older as well, it's good to change. It's good to change the muscle usage and not the pounding of the running as well. So we're there now, and we've said we'll get the kids all through sort of education there, because they've sort of started in the French system, and as long as everybody's happy, if one's not happy, it's a team decision that we will come back, or if something happened to the family or something, but at the moment we're there, and well,
I do think we need to do a podcast in France at some point.
Oh, here we go. Maybe for a week long, maybe January, third week in January. Definitely.
That'll be good. So as far as your work then, so you're a coach now, aren't you? So obviously that works well from wherever you are, doesn't it?
It's brilliant. So I stopped PE teaching. I went back after my I went back sort of part-time. I was a director of sport before I had kids, so it was a full-time job, 7 days a week. And I knew once I had kids that I wouldn't be able to carry on doing that, and I didn't want to. I wanted to be a mum, but I also wanted to carry on doing my own work. And so actually first I did my triathlon coaching qualifications, because I was still heavily involved in triathlon, and I picked up a few clients and did some coaching, and I worked for the team I used to race for. And then when I sort of put my trainers back on and decided I was going to delve into this world of ultra running, I sort of slowly picked up a few. It was just sort of organic process. Picked up some running clients, and then I did my personal training qualification and my strength and conditioning qualification, and got more involved into ultra running, and with more my own running success, obviously, then I started picking up some more clients, and then started working with James at Centurion. I've worked closely with him now for, I think it's about 10 years, long time. And as well as that, running my own coaching business. And I can do it. I've done it. I remember having my third baby. This is terrible. And then I said to my husband, can you bring my laptop in? Because when you had your third, it's like, she's going to be asleep for the next week. So I remember doing all my coaching plans, because she came 3 weeks early, so I wasn't ready. And I remember sitting, having had the baby at 10 o'clock the night before, the next morning, writing up the coaching plans. But it's a very flexible job, and it's grown with me as I've sort of as I've learned more. I've had some clients from the beginning, and I've sort of seen people on all sorts of journeys, and I can work when and I need to, and it has its stressful moments when the kids are all on holiday and I've got a lot to do, but I've got a very understanding husband, and you can work in the evening, and take calls, and I like to think that a lot of my clients become, they become friends, and so they understand when I go, I'm gonna write your plan for the next 3 weeks and check in on you, and we'll talk at the end of that, and I absolutely love it. Good. Actually, I love it. I love following people's journeys and helping them out, and making other people's sort of dreams. They think, I can never do that, and all they need is somebody to go, you can. I've got your back. Let's do it. Good.